Intermediaries are often engaged in defining the structures governing payments to providers as a tool they can use to influence care use and costs. Depending on the context, this can be more or less a one-sided conversation. When intermediaries have a lot of power, say they're a large government intermediary, they may get a lot of control over the structure. They still have to keep providers happy, of course, so there's bound to be some dialogue, but the intermediary can have a lot of power to do what they think they need to do to manage costs, promote higher quality, or whatever. On the other hand, sometimes the dynamic is more of a real negotiation. When both intermediaries and providers have some power, there can be more meaningful back and forth about these arrangements. The structure of payment arrangements can have a couple dimensions. One is the form of the payment. There are, of course, many choices. For paying physician practices and other professionals, you have choices like fee-for-service, capitation, sometimes episode payments, or others. For hospitals, fee-for-service, per diem, DRG, global budgets are all methods that you'll see out there. And in both cases, there are creative models that combine approaches, incorporate pay-for-performance goals, or do other things that intermediaries can use. You'll see intermediaries adopting different strategies for the form of payment as they try to create good working relationships with providers and as they work toward creating environments that meet their various goals with respect to cost and quality. There can be some interesting dynamics here. One common one is that many providers historically wanted to avoid payment methods that shifted risk in their direction, preferring payment forms like fee-for-service. Intermediaries, on the other hand, at times have tried to move toward payment methods that incentivized efficient decisions by providers, which could involve more risk transfer. Things like this can be a source of back and forth, with differing interests of intermediaries and providers at play. The second dimension is the level of payment. This can, of course, be just as important as the type. Fee-for-service, DRGs, any method, can be more or less costly if you set the fee schedule or the DRG payment amounts higher or lower. Of course, this is the subject of negotiations, where providers want to tend toward higher payment levels, and intermediaries are often trying to come up with agreements that keeps costs under control. One interesting interaction is between selective contracting and payment negotiations. Sometimes you'll see selective contracting used to enhance a plan's bargaining ability with providers. If a plan is going to select a subset of providers in an area for its network, then it can be natural for them to try and use that to leverage lower payment rates in return for inclusion in the network. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, but the dynamics at play here can be very interesting to watch.